Now that you've completed reading Last Stop on Market Street, we're going to be doing an activity where you're going to be asked to think about the different perspectives shown in this story. So we've got CJ and his grandmother, and we're going to be talking about the different ways that they see the same things in the city around them. Come on, let's go ahead and get started. We are going to take a closer look at our book, Last Stop on Market Street. And what we're going to be focusing on is different perspectives. In other words, we're looking at the different ways that people view the world around them. In this case, we're going to be taking a closer look at the way CJ views different things in the city that he lives in versus the way that his Nana views those exact same things. Their perspectives are different, and we're going to be comparing and contrasting those. Let's take a look at the first situation in the story, and then we're going to compare CJ's perspective versus Nana's perspective. Let's go to the book first. So in this situation, it rains at the bus stop. So let's go back to that part of the story, and let's see what CJ has to say about it versus Nana. So on this page, they're getting ready to go to the bus stop and it starts to rain. He ducked under Nana's umbrella saying, "How come we gotta wait for the bus in all this wet?" Okay, so going to my chart here from CJ's perspective, what did he say? Yeah, he says, "How come?" And I'm going to use quotation marks because that's around the part that CJ speaks in the story. So he says, "How come we gotta wait for the bus in all this wet?" Okay, so here's my quote. And then what is this really telling us? Do you think he really wants to stand outside in the rain? Doesn't sound like that to me. So we can also say he doesn't want to wait in the rain. Now, let's read on to find Nana's perspective. Let's go back to the story. What does Nana say? "Trees get thirsty too," his Nana told him. "Don't you see that big one drinking through a straw?" CJ looked for a long time, but never saw a straw. Okay, so what did she reply? She said, "Trees get thirsty too." So I'm going to write that down, starting with quotation marks here. She said, "Trees get thirsty too." So what is she trying to say when she said trees get thirsty too? What's she trying to remind him? Yeah, she's trying to remind him that the rain serves a purpose, that it's watering the plants and helping the trees grow. Okay, she reminds him that rain is important. Rain is important for trees. Okay, so she has a more positive perspective, doesn't she? She sees it as not necessarily a bad thing, but something that could benefit the plants and more specifically the trees. Okay, the next situation, they don't own a car. So let me go back to the story. We're going to turn the page to the part where they don't have a car. And understand that that is okay. Let's read what CJ has to say about that. From the bus stop, he watched water pool on flower petals. He watched rain patter against the windshield of a nearby car. His friend Colby climbed in, gave CJ a wave, and drove off with his dad. Nana, how come we don't got a car? Okay, so what did he say? Nana, how come we don't got a car? So I'm gonna, my quotation marks, and I'm gonna write, how come we don't got a car? How do you infer that he's feeling at this part of the story? How does he feel about not owning a car? Do you think he feels happy about that? And it sounds like he's feeling left out, doesn't it? So maybe I could write, he feels left out. Or like he's missing something. Now, what does Nana say? What's her perspective on the situation? What does she reply? Boy, what do we need a car for? We got a bus that breathes fire and old Mr. Dennis, who always has a trick for you. Okay, so I'm gonna write down a portion of her quote, which is the part that says, what do we need a car for? Quotation marks. What do we need a car for? Okay, and that tells us, what is she reminding him of? She reminds him that riding the bus can be a good thing. So she reminds him that riding the bus is a good thing. Okay. Our next situation, a man who is blind sits down on the bus. Okay, so if I flip over to the part of the story where the man who is blind comes in and sits down, first of all, what does CJ say? How come that man can't see? All right, so I can just write quotation marks, how come that man can't see? And what does Nana reply? Boy, what do you know about seeing? Nana told him, some people watch the world with their ears. Okay, what do you think she meant when she said some people watch the world with their ears? Think about that for a minute. Yeah, how is someone who is visually impaired, how do they get around? By using their other senses, right? By using his sense of hearing and touch. And he also says their noses too. And he mentions her nice smelling perfume. So CJ's perspective is he's kind of feeling sorry for that man who is blind, right? Thinking it's going to be awfully hard for him. But what does Nana remind him? Remind CJ this man is still able to interact with his world, and he can actually appreciate and watch the world with his ears. He can appreciate sound even more, or sense. So let's write down what Nana says. She says, some people watch the world with their ears. So the next two events are the older boys come on the bus listening to music. The street outside the soup kitchen is dirty. So find those portions of the story, and if you want to use the video, go back and rewatch the video, pausing the places where you need to pause. Write down quotes from CJ's perspective. What did he mean, or how did he see that or perceive that same situation versus Nana's perspective? What does she say about it? How does she see things? And There at the bottom, you're going to need to think and respond. With Nana's help, CJ's perspective changes at the end of the story, and he's able to look for more of the beautiful in the world around him. This is your challenge, to really make a connection. Where do you need more help looking for the beautiful around you? And I'm guilty of this as well, of not always looking for the beautiful around me. And sometimes we feel like complaining about our everyday situations, but where could you find more beauty and more wonder in the world around you? So I'm challenging you to think of things maybe at home, at school, if you play sports, maybe at practice. So think about what you could find and where you can find more examples of beauty at your home or at school or at sports practice. If you think about something, you're going to write your answer on the back of your page, and then maybe you can draw an illustration to go along with that. So I invite you now to go ahead and finish filling out your chart and think about that connection that you can make. Happy writing.